G'day, it's Robbie again. Well, the strip down and the rejuvenation is going well, and the more I look at this old headstock, the more interesting things I find on it. It's interesting that this headstock is originally painted black. You can see here some black paint hiding underneath this yellow that's yellowish green, which is a colour Schaublin also had. But at that particular time you could choose between black or this sort of yellowy colour, which they carried on with and discontinued the black. You can see the black there, some black there, some more here and there. But what's also interesting is that the front bush retainer, now this is hardened steel, super hard steel, double taper bush. The retaining ring for this, which a lot of people think is an adjuster and they beat on it and finish up mangling them, it's not. All that does is just hold in it just holds in that front bush. It's interesting that they've actually painted, Schaublin originally have painted over that as well. There's the black paint, you can see it. When I put a bit of cleaning pad, Scotch-Brite on it, whatever, it actually took some of the paint off, so I'll buff that back. I mean, it's going to look better. It's not really any big deal, but you can see that, yeah, that's been painted as well. And originally I thought it had blued it, because normally on this particular hardware, it's all polished up, and on the old lathe it is polished up. But it looks like originally they actually sprayed over this stuff. The rear adjuster isn't painted over at all. That was just bright metal. I mean, the thing's in top shape. Underneath, I've still got to clean it up there on the ends. I'll just wire buff them and that'll get that off. But a little tip for you, I mean, when you work on this stuff and you want to undo stuff like this that is pretty tight, you know, you're tempted to use a screwdriver on it like most people do and belt on the flats with that, and if it's not too tight it's not going to do any damage. But if you have to put any substantial force on, you'll bruise all the metal. So always use a brass punch, alright? Just get it on, use the hammer and it'll go. The same as this was tight, but a few good taps with brass, because brass would have fallen before in fact you can see where it's squared off the end of my punch, knocking it around, trying to break it free. So that's come off. And another good tip is too, when you work on this stuff, use an old hacksaw spark plug cleaner. Now this is what mechanics, my man was a mechanic all his life, and this is what they use to clean it down in the centre of a spark plug. But it's good, you can get into all the little corners with them. You can use them this way as well to scrape paint and old rubbish off, and you can get into threads and clean around threads with them rather than use a wide brush. So old hacksaw blade ground to a point, and you can, as I said, you can use it for spark plug cleaner. You've also got the serrated edge, which can be handy to sort of, you know, open up slots on screws and stuff that have been burnt over. It's a handy little gadget. So, okay, if you do this sort of work, something to think about. Now, what's happening with the rest of the stuff? Well, I'll show you. Right, well down here we've got the electrolysis bath going, and I've got the lathe spindle pulley in there. Now that was heavily corroded, probably worse than my old one, because this was down by the beach, down by the seaside, so it was in pretty salty conditions. So I will electrobath that with baking soda, well, washing soda. Then when I've done that, rather than wire buff it, I'll clean it up with that concrete cleaning solution that you can buy, which is a fulmaric acid, and that will then break down the black that goes on. I shouldn't have to use a wire buff at all on this if this goes right, and then just neutralise it with putting it back into the washing soda will neutralise the fulmaric acid. Down here we have all the parts which I've stripped off, wire buffed back, cleaned them up totally, with all the little screws and everything I can get off, all cleaned up, and they're sitting in there soaking in dieseline. Diesel's good because it preserves the stuff while it's standing. It also helps to sort of penetrate in and lube stuff, so I won't dive around there, it's a bit messy. But yeah, I wanted a container that wouldn't take gallons of dieseline to soak them in, so I'm just using that little carry tray that you can get from from gardening centres to carry your gardening tools. I picked it up at a garage sale for, I don't know, a few cents, and it's handy for putting stuff like this in. What else? Right, on my faithful old Black & Decker Workmate 600, which I got off the side of the road for nothing, like a lot of my stuff. Here is the tailstock, and what a wonderful tailstock this is. Now I've cleaned it up, I pulled it apart and cleaned up all the stuff which was removable once again. With both this, the tailstock and the headstock, it's too cold, way too cold to consider painting them, and I'll paint them the original Schaublin black, which is a matte black, which is what I did the other old lathe. I didn't get the colour quite right, it's actually a really matte, flat black, but a gloss, and the paint I used was, well, I got the guy to mix it in, it was pretty flat, but Schaublin had a really flat one. So yeah, this is a beautiful old thing, this is great, I mean, I'm really pleased. I've got a Morse 2, because this is a Morse 2 spindle, which is very, very, very unusual for this old stuff. They all were all the Schaublin 2-degree taper, and I've got an ER 32 collet chuck coming for this, because I'll use this for, you know, centre boring and drilling, obviously, which is, you know, the main benefit of having it. I've got a Morse 2 live centre coming as well, so that'll be good. I mean, the beauty of using the ER32 stuff rather than the drill chuck is that it grips the stuff a lot harder, doesn't mark your stuff, is more accurate. It's just a better all-round system, and you can use it in your headstock and your tailstock on most lathes. So, you know, anyone that's not into collets should seriously think about it. You can grip stuff that just, well, it's a snack. It's an absolute snack to use. Whereas you'd be struggling with 4-jaw, 3-jaw chucks, trying not to mark stuff or even grip it, because, you know, these can grip just the tiniest of stuff. Anyway, that's good, all good. So I'm just waiting for the bits. I can start using that. But yeah, the painting won't start until the weather warms up. And in the tub here we have all the leftover bits which are not Schaublin. There's the pull downs that I showed you in that last video. The cam locks are also not original. They're machined up okay, but it's not brilliant machining. They're not a fine finish like the real stuff. But I'll clean them up and they're probably useful. And a couple of Allen header bolts that were there, which were in the end of the headstock. Well, they're not doing anything because you have to have the adapters to go on there, the equipment, and primarily the mounting point on the headstock was for a little mini sort of a drive change gear arrangement, which drove a tiny little tail shaft type drive to the top slide, so you could actually do threading on these even though they didn't have a lead screw. Rare as hen's teeth, I mean, you'd be lucky to find one. And that's what the keyway in the end of the spindle was for. That actually was the keyway that drove the main gear off of the end of the spindle for that rack. There could have been a rack of gears and a drive shaft at some stage in its life, but it's certainly not here now. So that's where we're at. Next time I see this lathe, it'll probably be back together. Not painted, of course, I'll just leave it like this until the weather is suitable for painting. And thinking about it, I think I'll actually leave that finish on the front bush retainer, so give a bit of patina to it and show how it was originally. So yeah, rather than strip it, just leave it original. So yeah, it'll be all back together, all the bits will be on it, so nothing can go astray, and then it's just a matter of if I want to use it I can, and yeah, paint job a bit later on, and that'll be it. Okay, anyway, hope you found it interesting. See you next time. Cheers.